Obviously, Piyush gave a great introduction about the community and various methods to access this very lively community. So I just wanted to go ahead and give some introduction. This was the motivation for this year's review was obviously based on the excellent work done by the last year's team led by Piyush. The idea was to present a subject matter expert directed synopsis of clinical literature, peer-reviewed literature that was published and exclusively focused on machine learning and AI in the year 2019. In terms of our materials and methods, we selected one bibliographic database, which was the Medline, published by the National Library of Medicine. We used the PubMed search engine to search for articles that were had a keyword of machine learning or artificial intelligence. And to improve the specificity of our output, we restricted the results to the year 2019, obviously due to limited resource in terms of language. We restricted our search output to English language and of course just humans. Extensive work was done by Dr. Mathur using abstract heading and full text where needed to actually further categorize this results into meaningful buckets. And subsequently, Dr. Mathur reached out to subspecialists or content editors for writing a synopsis. What it ended up was the numbers are on the screen. The initial yield was almost around 3,500 articles. Almost 1,700 were excluded based on the title, abstract, as well as full text when applicable. And the remaining almost 1,650 articles were categorized into 25 medical specialties, including a ever important general category that is obviously even more relevant considering the times that we are living in right now. Any questions, Piyush, or any technical issues at this point of time?
No, I think please go ahead.
Okay, good. Thank you. So obviously, based on the categorization of 25 medical subspecialties, including the general category, a lot of voluminous work and very specific work done by Dr. Mathur, and that ended up in 25 buckets of medical subjects. Subsequently, Dr. Mathur reached out to section contributors / editors for a what they for their version or their kind of putting together their synopsis for what happened in 2019 based on the literature that was searched. As you can see, almost 25 categories, including ranging from anesthesiology to surgery, arranged alphabetically. And where section contributors have responded, we have the names: anesthesiology, cardiology. In fact, Dr. Avirup Guha is in fact in the audience right now, and many others who might have joined the last time I checked. Anesthesiology was by Dr. Michael Burns, cardiology, Dr. Guha, critical care, Dr. Bhattacharya from Cleveland, emergency medicine from Dr. Lee, gastroenterology from Dr. Raj Mamadi, general literature from Australia, Dr. Sandeep Reddy, oncology, Dr. Aziz Naza from Cleveland, psychiatry and behavioral sciences, Dr. Sanand and Dr. Cha from Cleveland, pulmonary medicine by myself, and radiology by Dr. Tai Vachon. So some of the enhancements that we thought would be useful to the user are listed here. We have made extensive use of internal navigation. We do admit that this document is a rather voluminous document and we felt that it needed some internal guidance. So the editorial summary lists all the subject matters in subject categories in alphabetical order, and they do have an internal hyperlink, which when clicked will get you to the bibliography and editorial if available. Of course, bibliography is always available, but editorial, as you can see, we have a 30% contribution. So again, we felt that due to the voluminous nature of the output, it would be very useful for readers who have narrowed focus to kind of easily navigate through this document. Likewise, when you get into the bibliography, you have two more hyperlinks. One hyperlink would be to access the actual bibliography, and the other hyperlink is for the subject matter expert editorial. I'll quickly demonstrate how this is in how this translates. So just a second. Are you able to see the PDF document?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously the document itself has 124 pages. So wherever you see blue letters, those are hyperlinks, meaningful hyperlinks. So for example, this is a one-page summary of a two-line summary of every subject matter category, and kind of a two-line summary of what exactly was the focus of that subject matter domain. So if you click on anesthesiology, you would actually go to this area where again, two more hyperlinks would be existing. This hyperlink is for the subject matter experts editorial. And as you know, there are ways to quickly go back by using shift and a left arrow, which will take you back to the exact location where you came from. I can send you the shortcut for that. And likewise, clicking on anesthesiology would take you there, and the bibliography clicking on the bibliography would take you back there. So, so that's kind of the user interface improvements. I'm going back to the presentation. So we think that this could be potential help to the users, especially if they want to navigate very quickly between different sections of the document. And I apologize, I will send you a keyboard shortcut that will effortlessly let you get back to the same location where you were before. So we'll send that out as an email. So when it comes back to any questions for now?
No, we can keep going. Okay. I think we'll take questions at the end.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I just put together a kind of a 1 to 2 line summary of what we felt was the most resonating theme for that clinical category. When it came to anesthesiology, what we saw was a lot of focus on predicting deleterious complications intraoperatively and postoperatively, whether it's the opioid overdose risk, especially the opioid overdose risk, or whether it was predicting intraoperative hypotension. So cardiology saw a lot of focus on, and again, Dr. Guha is here in the audience. So Avirup, any thoughts on what you felt was cardiology's focus?
I think I agree with what you've written there. I think the ECG waveform analysis was definitely a focus of multiple studies. Heavy focus on imaging, just because the better the quality of the data, the easier it is to do some of these analysis. So I agree with what you have put there. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Avirup. Critical care, again, saw a lot of focus on early identification of sepsis and ICU events. And a very interesting focus was on real-time decision support in tele-ICUs. And for folks who are wondering why this is such a big deal, tele-ICUs usually have hundreds of patients being taken care of by a very small group of remote doctors at a given point of time, and therefore real-time decision support, real-time waveform analysis, and a meaningful decision support is indeed a big deal. Again, satisfying the requirements of meaningful AI support. Dermatology, ophthalmology, radiology, and pathology, groups of clinical practice that have a lot of reliance on images, and therefore it's not surprising that dermatology saw a lot of focus on classification of images to aid early diagnosis of skin cancers. Again, a very laborious manual task otherwise. And again, AI proving to be an able ally. Medical education saw a lot of focus on introducing natural language processing techniques to medical students, something that's very of great interest to me personally. And emergency medicine saw a lot of interest on prediction of meaningful ED events, such as written events, risk of written, so-called bounce back to the emergency room, early identification of sepsis while the patient is being triaged, and improving triaging using natural language processing. I think this is of, again, great importance because sick patients are very likely to talk in limited sentences, and I think ability to extract sentiment from these things, from these sentences are very important. The next one is endocrinology. Endocrinology saw a lot of focus on identifying diabetic cohorts and predicting risk of adverse events in these folks. A very noteworthy publication that garnered a lot of interest was using artificial intelligence techniques to classify thyroid nodules in real-time ultrasound. I think I wanted to kind of really highlight this because, again, this demonstrates the meaningful integration of AI support with meaningful integration with workflows. I think this really shapes how AI and ML techniques are going to be embraced by the wider community. Again, this example we felt was very noteworthy. Gastroenterology was praiseworthy for the fact that 3 randomized controlled trials were reported, something that's kind of unique to gastroenterology this year. These 3 randomized control trials compared AI / machine learning techniques. They were compared to a colonoscopist in detecting polyps. Now, as we all know, detecting polyps is the single most important factor that predicts survival in colonoscopy patients. The more time you spend in colonoscopy, the more adenomas you're supposed to detect. And we all know that that's kind of very ideal, but not translatable into real clinical practice. And I felt this was very important. The fact that they were randomized certainly adds meaningful strength to the conclusions. General literature, as expected, and again, very, very relevant given the coronavirus pandemic, focused on using AI techniques for discovering new drug targets and new antibiotic discovery. And of course, very, very relevant. Genetics, for lack of an expert, we were not able to crystallize meaningful synthesis, and I don't claim to be an expert in medical genetics, so we'll stop there. As far as ENT, dental, head and neck medicine, as expected, a lot of focus on using imaging output from ENT endoscopies, analysis of such images, and translating them into clinically meaningful information. Nephrology saw a lot of interest in predicting acute kidney injury. I'm sure a lot of interest was generated about the study that was done in London, as well as the VA, again, a lot of interest in predicting acute kidney injury, early acute kidney injury. And as expected, a lot of studies focused on improving the read of kidney biopsies during electron microscopic interpretation. Neurology saw a lot of interest in improving and the time to EEG read and early diagnosis of Parkinsonism using gait analysis or subtle changes imaging data. Obstetrics and gynecology exclusively focused on predicting the risk of postpartum complications, and especially using natural language processing techniques to identify pregnant women who were at risk for postpartum depression. I think this, I felt, was very meaningful, given that most of us still try to put a sentiment or sort of a thought process when we write our assessment and plan notes. Oncology obviously is one of the natural leaders in this area. They have described a lot of reports that have aimed to improve the reads of biopsies, as well as building personalized prediction models, again, achieving the holy grail of precision medicine. And they have successfully reported many successful integrated integration of data sources such as electronic medical record, pathological data, as well as radiological and genomic data, the omics era. Ophthalmology obviously is a early adopter and has probably outshone many clinical disciplines in terms of utilizing images for diagnosis and outcome prediction. And very recently, this week's NEGM carried an ophthalmology report about using AI to diagnose papilledema. So that's not a surprise, given that eye is such a rich source for imaging data. Orthopedics and rheumatology showed some interest in utilizing images for early recognition of osteoarthritis, which of course is a debilitating disease, and automated detection of fractures in radiological images. And pathology, along with ophthalmology and other image-intensive clinical disciplines, continues to report a large experience with the utilization of image-dependent diagnostic and, more importantly, classification workflows. So the pediatrics more or less mirrored the adult subspecialty experience. Physiotherapy and rehab concentrated on gait analysis using images. Psychiatry and behavioral sciences were predicting the risk of suicide and using radiological images for early prediction of Alzheimer's. Pulmonary medicine showed an intense interest in automating and reducing the time needed for analysis of sleep studies. For folks who might not be familiar with the workflow for sleep studies, there is an inordinate amount of delay in getting a sleep study and getting a result done. And that is because practitioners literally have to pore over multiple channels of data to arrive at a categorical outcome of whether you have sleep apnea or not. And I think this is, again, something of great interest, because this cuts down the clerical responsibilities of the physicians and tries to improve not only physician satisfaction, but even patient satisfaction. Patients usually are very, very disappointed when they have to wait multiple weeks before they hear whether they have sleep apnea or not. And of course, some interest in predicting the risk of COPD and asthma exacerbations. And radiology, as ophthalmology and other image-intense specialties, continues to be a natural leader in reporting improvements in automatic classification, segmentation, and even diagnosis. And increasing reports are focusing on trying to integrate this with predicting treatment responses, because that's ultimately what the clinician is interested in, as well as quality improvement. And of course, there's always the natural concern that some of these developments do not come with a successful description of integration with workflow, which continues to be an issue with wider adoption. Surgery, a lot of interest in predicting transplant outcomes and using NLP techniques from clinical notes to aid early warning regarding deleterious outcomes in transplants, such as rejection or patients not being compliant with anti-rejection medications. So, so that's again, this is what I felt was the 60,000-foot take-home messages. A lot of focus on utilizing point of care and imaging data wherever it was available from, whether it was from biopsy, point of care ultrasound, and or endoscopic images. The fact that there was focus on predicting clinically useful outcomes is very reassuring, especially GI. 3 randomized control trials. I think that was, I felt was very, very, and that too on a very, very well-known metric of quality in colonoscopy, which is the adenoma detection rate. And the fact that a lot of experts are feeling that we need more examples of successful workflow integration also makes me feel that we are moving in the right direction. And of course, this has some limitations. Obviously, we have restricted our search to 1 bibliographic database and 1 language. So there's always that there's always the bias introduced by restricting ourselves to 1 language and 1 database. So again, thanks a lot to the community for giving me this opportunity to help. And we sincerely thank, of course, Piyush for not only giving me this opportunity, but also for the enormous work that he has put in categorizing this into meaningful buckets. Just amazed at how he was able to deliver this. And of course, we are very thankful to the subspecialists, section editors who have graciously contributed their time as well as their insight and their subject matter expertise. Clearly, the content of the manuscript has been elevated by those contributions. And we definitely are looking at future directions. We want to improve the user interface of this all-in-one document. You know, we are always looking for ideas. Definitely, I'm interested in improving the user interface and navigation. So any ideas are welcome. And again, thanks for the opportunity, and thanks to everyone who has contributed immensely to this document.
Thank you, Srinivas. That was awesome. Like to summarize this massive effort in a beautiful way, that was very, very helpful. And I'm hopeful that all the participants are able to benefit from that. Any questions for Dr. Mumadi?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. That was a great overview.
One question for the participants on this, like, what is it that you would like to see other than categorization? And this year we brought a lot of efficiency enhancements into this. And again, I have this screen listing all the specialist contributors who tried to focus the efforts within their specialty into a small abstract, so that without having to read hundreds of articles, sometimes you can just get like, okay, what was the highlight? What would you like to see more? Something that we can even work through the year out of this, or something that could be an enhancement for the future. So any thoughts on that?
I have a thought, Piyush. I think
Yes.
If we can galvanize the community to recruit more contributors, I think we can get out of our comfort zone and access more databases, and maybe at some point of time have a weighted score to some of the results. Like, if you're an RCT, you get higher representation in the editorial. things like that that would improve the take-home messages. But again, obviously, that would require the community to galvanize and contribute. But I was thinking on those lines, like the more section editors we have, the more crisper the output has become.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought. And I think that's what we'll work towards next year, or even later this year. We might be able to get the specialties that were missed because of the time crunch and unfortunate COVID-19 pandemic. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some more focused reviews from other specialists later this year. So that's a great thought.
Hi, Abhish. This is Kamal.
Hey, Kamal.
Hey, so
Thanks.
yeah, following up on the comment here, first of all, thanks for the presentation today to summarize all the literature with regards to machine learning in healthcare. I think going forward, one other things which we can do, we briefly discussed earlier that from every specialty we can pick up 3 papers based on one, the quality of this in study, 2, the application of machine learning, and 3, the impact in clinical care, which ultimately gets reflected to some extent into how much where the information is published and how much is being used in clinical practice. And based on those, for example, 3 from each specialty, then we can have a voting system within our group to at least pick up the top 3 papers for the year, or top 3 application of machine learning in healthcare. And I think we should give from our community, from BrainX, identify those investigators and give it a prize. I'm ready to give a, not that it matters, but but just that recognition to show that from the community itself, we think that these are the few major papers which was impactful.
Yeah, that's a great thought. I think we'll have to work towards that for next year. I see quite a few of the participants. Anybody from the engineering group, like anybody from pure machine learning side, what would you want to see in this?
Hey Siri, I'm not on machine learning, but I have a quick comment. Is that okay? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I hear you.
Hey, yeah. So this is really a great talk. Thank you so much. So I mean, with my, I would just add, like, as an industry wise, because there are so many machine learning for a payer versus a provider versus a pharma. So there are like some extra benefits of AI specifically for payer versus pharma. So maybe we can even think on those, like CMS star ratings versus, like, medication adherence specifically, those kind of things. We can definitely categorize each of you, like, in those some small subcategories. So
yeah, so actually that is there in the administrative one. So I think
okay.
yeah, maybe we missed it on this one, but that is there is a category for like administrative, and then some of those fall into general categories. So anything related to quality improvement, anything related to administrative operational efficiency, I think they were categorized mostly into administrative.
That was right. That was right.
Oh, perfect. Sorry, I missed that then. Sorry for that.
No,
No,
I think
that's a
maybe
great
we missed it on this one. Yeah.
We missed on the slide, so I apologize.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries.
All right. Any other comments or any other thoughts? Well, thank you so much for joining. This was a special session for us, and again, wish to thank all the contributors who are listed on this, and all the participants, and of course all the BrainX community members who over time period have pushed us to prepare this to support everyone. And once again, these are all free efforts. These are voluntary efforts. The whole document is available for free. Everything from BrainX community is open access, doesn't reside behind firewall. So I would like to thank everyone once again for their special efforts in this. I see one more comment over here. All right, thank you. All right, with that, we'll end this session. Thank you very much for joining and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.